This is an emergency transmission. Citizens of the world, please, make no mistake. The zombie apocalypse is near. Will you cower and hide, or join us and fight? We are Dezombified, so stay on point and watch your six.
I think we're live. Is this thing on? Zombified, if you can give me a little monitor in the back end there, I'd appreciate it. How we doing tonight, folks? Welcome to Real Evil. This is, what are we up to now? Episode 12? I think this is 12. It's either 11 or 12. I forgot, and I don't see there. And I think we said there were going to be 13 in this season, then we'll start a new season. So, Disturbed K, Donna Messenger. Good to see you here. Fear the Great White. Hello, hello. Jose, thank you for joining us. Pam Smith in the house. Are you kidding me? I think I already said your name. Laura Stevens. Hey, Laura, how you doing? Okay, see myself on the screen now, but I know there's a delay here, so not sure when you started hearing me. I don't have anything in my monitors. Hey, there's Sister Carol Varick. How you doing, Carol? And I think we're caught up with the chat here. Small, intimate crowd tonight, but that's okay. We can play to a packed house or small gatherings. We're available for bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, and kids' birthday parties.
And I like karaoke, so
there you go. Mercury in retrograde has hit me hard. My 27-inch 5K iMac Wonder Machine has a problem with the boot sector, so I've got to get that taken care of. Meantime, I'm using this little MacBook Pro, and everything's backwards and in a different place and not set up to my liking, so bear with us. Gemma, how are you doing? Is Mercury retrograde hitting you hard too?
Yes, Mercury retrograde has completely kicked my butt. I swear, the day it went retrograde, the day it started, everything just totally fell apart. Like mentally, emotionally, technologically, and apparently the way I talk too. But no, yeah, it's really hit me. I'm a Pisces. It's in Gemini this month. So that affects me a little bit more. And it says, watch your paperwork and double, triple check this. And I got writer's block. And now I have time constraint issues again. And all of this stuff is just happening, especially, they say, with tech, with arguments with family, especially siblings, and with watching your paperwork, double, triple checking, little things like losing your car keys, misplacing your cell phone. So it ends officially on July 7th, but on June 22nd, I believe it is, it's going to lessen a little bit. I don't know exactly how that works, but I know June 22nd, a lot of the stuff that it's affecting is going to slow down. It's not going to be as strong of an influence on us. And then July 7th, it officially ends. But there are 3 Mercury retrogrades this year. We had one in, I believe it was either Aquarius or Capricorn. I think Aquarius. And then this one. And then there's another one, but I couldn't tell you when because I try not to think about it. Speaking of siblings, Carol Varick. Yeah, I was just going to say, she said, no arguing, sissy. And I'm like, you and I, knock on wood, have been doing pretty good, but we do have another sister, so you never know. Donna Messenger, thank you so much for joining us. Mama Donna is a very dear, close friend of mine in real life. And I always like to see people that I know and have met before, and in her case, lived with, come out and give me some support. Everybody else, Jose Maguina, are you kidding me? No, I'm not. Pam Smith, Dezombified, fancy seeing you here. Disturbed K, love the name. Realities in Perspective, hey boo. Who did I miss? Because I'm only at the bottom here. I know there aren't that many, so I can shout everybody out. Did I get everybody? Laura Stevens, sorry about that. You were all the way up top. Fear the Great White. How is everyone doing tonight? The blood moon, huh? The super flower blood moon. If people keep coming to me and asking me why we aren't allowing them into the chat. We never don't allow anybody in the chat. I mean, if you come in and start some trouble, we might put you in timeout, but that's never happened on this show. We don't kick anybody out. I just want to make that very clear. That's not what my sister's saying, but that reminded me of this. Someone said that because they were a Christian, we had kicked them out of the chat. We don't do that. I'm a Christian, and we don't persecute like that anyway. But
we feed them to the lions.
It's you. Yeah, exactly. It's YouTube. I don't know. I think it's something with. Are you kidding me? Said at Carol Varick. It's the BEKs. It probably is. Let's not even talk about them because they shut down our live stream the other night with Tessa TNT as well. Like as soon as I started talking about the white-eyed kids and how it's leading me back to people in the woods and like the black-eyed kids, everything shut down. And I have all brand new equipment. My laptop I got on my birthday in March. The mic I just started using last week. This I've only had for like 3 days. So maybe a week. But yeah, so everybody, I'm so happy to see you guys here. Sorry I went on a little ramble there, but I'm just letting everyone know it's never us kicking anyone out of the chat. If we were to kick you out, you would know, because I think it would tell you we put you in timeout or we kicked you out. So please don't ever think that we would do something like that. We'd probably put you in timeout or address.
When you go into the stream, look up at the top, and if it says live chat, click there. If you're not logged in, you won't see that. So make sure you're logged into YouTube. Otherwise, it may or may not give you the option to go in live chat. I've seen it there before, but when you click on it, then it'll say you have to log into YouTube. So,
yeah, Dezombified, that's weird. He said we are already requesting review because each of our lives start with limited monetization. I don't know anything about that because I'm still not monetized. I got my 1,000, but now I need like 1,000 view hours. So Steve and I are going to do something maybe
marathons.
In 2 weeks. We're going to do at least one marathon. Yeah, are you kidding me? She said, I know, girl. I was there. It was so freaky. It really was. It was like the minute we started talking about that. So tonight we are talking about something really interesting. Steve recommended a documentary to you guys, and I totally seconded that emotion. The Sons of Sam. Steve, you want to explain a little bit what we're going to be talking about tonight?
Yeah, it's based on a book by author Maury Terry. He's deceased now. Off the top of my head, I can't remember if it came out in 85 or 87, somewhere in the 80s. And it just blew me away. I bought it somewhere. I've still got my hardback copy, first edition. And it was just amazing because it talked in it how that David Berkowitz didn't act alone, which I never thought he did anyway, because it was just too far flung and too much going on. And all the eyewitness drawings there and stuff, half of them looked different. So I always thought there was more than one culprit there. And not only did that, but he connected it in with the Manson family, the Process Church of the Final Judgment, which, if you know anything about the Manson family, there was a connection there. Also connected to a certain religion that L. Ron Hubbard founded that starts with an S and are very Sue happy, so I won't even mention the name. But there's just a lot of weird connections there, and they found
it was so interesting.
Movie producer Roy Raden's murder, and
Arliss Perry.
Things. Yep, Arliss Perry. That was another one. Berkowitz seemed to have intimate knowledge of that one, although they found through DNA the guy they think did it. And when they showed up to arrest him, he opened the door, let the officers in, and blew his brains out. So he obviously knew something more than that too. But yeah, that Arliss Perry murder, if you've ever studied that, was on the campus of Stanford. They had just moved there. She was newly married, 19 years old, had just moved there from South Dakota. And she went out to go to the library one night, I think it was, and never came back. They found her the next day. The security guard did. She was in the chapel of the church there on campus, spread out on the altar, naked from the waist down, and had an ice pick stuck in her head with the handle broken off, and had been violated with one altar candle and had another one placed between her breasts. And her jeans had been taken off, turned inside out, and were laid across her legs, which were opened up to make it look like a Masonic symbol. So there was a lot of weird, creepy symbolism and things in that case. But now the security guard that found her is the one that they claim was the actual perpetrator, and that's the one that killed himself rather than be faced down by police. But I've heard an alternate theory that he fooled around with the corpse even though he didn't kill her. So who knows? But anyway, and what Maury Terry did, he drew all these lines and made all these connections. Well, the authorities wanted no part of it. As soon as they arrested Berkowitz, that was it. The case was over. It was done. At that time, New York Mayor Abe Beame was up for re-election. The public was demanding his head on a stick, basically, because of all these killings and happening in different parts of the city, different boroughs. And once they had Berkowitz, they did find a 45 caliber Charter Arms Bulldog pistol that forensically matched some of the slugs that they had recovered. So, boom, case solved. We got him. And that was the headline on the New York Post. We got him, and had a big picture of Berkowitz there. More promotions in the police department than New York City had ever seen. Everybody that had done anything on the case got a promotion and a raise. Beam got reelected. All's well that ends well. But see, it wasn't that simple. There was so many things that pointed to Berkowitz not being the only culprit. Number one, if you've ever watched any interviews with him, he's somewhat more intelligent now, but back then, in the 80s, when he was in his 20s or so, he seemed like, I don't even know how to put it nicely. He seemed like a kid that you would have in special class or something like that. He wasn't very bright. And you're not telling me that this guy, who was a lowly postal worker from Yonkers, actually masterminded this big crime and put all this together and did it all by himself. And he's gotten more intelligent. I think he studied a lot in prison. He's gotten a degree. He turned his life over to Christ. He's become a minister now. He does a prison ministry and outreach. And he talks about a lot of things. He admits to being the trigger man in, I think it's either 2 or 3 of the shootings. Others, he said he was present, but he didn't pull the trigger. And that was the thing. It was done by a group of people. And back then, video equipment wasn't like you can carry around now in the palm of your hand. It, was a big deal. And he claimed that one of the suspects had a van that they carried around this video equipment in. And if he wasn't a shooter, he was a lookout or a scout or somebody to kind of divert attention. And he claimed that a lot of these were filmed, especially famously the Stacy Moskowitz slay. And you're going to say something, Gemma?
Yeah, I just didn't expect you to throw it all out right now. I was under the impression we were going to talk about Berkowitz and then do the Sons for a tiny little bit at the end. I didn't know you were going to give it all out. So
okay, I had it backwards. I thought we were going to give the groundwork for Berkowitz and then get into the Sons.
We are giving we didn't. We got into the Sons first. That's what you just did.
Well, I left out.
I just want to know where we're at.
Let's just start at the beginning.
So I'll start at the
beginning. Tell us about David Berkowitz's early childhood.
Okay, I just don't want to repeat a lot of stuff. That's the only reason.
Well, okay. I blew through it fast. That was the Cliff Notes version of it anyway.
So David Berkowitz, who was born Richard David Falco on June 1st, 1953. I was going to say big surprise Gemini, but then I thought of Kenny Dreadful, and I'm like, I think I might like Geminis now. Gemini men.
Some of them are okay.
I usually run from them, but some of y'all are all right. So David Richard Berkowitz, born Richard David Falco, also known as the son of Sam and the 44 caliber killer, is an American serial killer who pleaded guilty to 8 shootings that began in New York City during mid-1976. Berkowitz grew up in New York City and served in the United States Army. The reason his name changed was because he was adopted. Using a 44 special caliber Bulldog revolver, he killed 6 people and wounded 7 others by July of 1977. The killing spree terrorized New Yorkers and gained worldwide notoriety. Berkowitz eluded the biggest police manhunt in the history of New York City while leaving letters that mocked the police and promised further crimes, which were highly publicized by the press. Berkowitz was arrested on August 10th, 1977, and subsequently indicted for 8 shootings. He confessed to all of them and initially claimed to have been obeying the orders of a demon manifested in the form of a dog belonging to his neighbor, Sam. Berkowitz was found mentally competent to stand trial. He pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and was incarcerated in state prison. He subsequently admitted that the dog and devil story was all a hoax. In the course of further police investigations, Berkowitz was also implicated in many unsolved arsons in New York City. Intense coverage of the case by the media lent a kind of celebrity status to Berkowitz, which he seemed to really enjoy. If you noticed if you ever saw the video of when they were first bringing him in, like the news media coverage, he was smirking and smiling, and like every time someone would take his picture, he would smile or smirk, which it totally gave me the chills. As noted by some observers. In response, the New York State Legislature enacted new statutes known popularly as the Son of Sam laws, designed to keep criminals from financially profiting from the publicity created by their own crimes. The statutes have remained law in New York despite various legal challenges, and similar laws have been enacted in several other states. Berkowitz has been incarcerated since his arrest and is serving 6 consecutive life sentences. During the mid-1990s, he amended his confession to claim that he had been a member of a violent satanic cult that orchestrated the incidents as ritual murder. A few law enforcement authorities have said that his claims might be credible, but he remains the only person ever charged with the shootings. A new investigation of the murders began in 1996, but was suspended indefinitely after inconclusive findings. And this blows my mind because it takes watching, just a tiny bit of this documentary or reading a little bit of Maury Terry's book to know that, it's not unsubstantiated and it's not credible. So he was born, like I said, Richard David Falco. His mother, Betty Broder, grew up as part of an impoverished Jewish family and was a waitress. She married Tony Falco, who was an Italian American in 1936. They say she was a waitress, and they're like, Tony Falco, an Italian American, like that was his occupation. That's just how they have it written here on Wikipedia. Is just crazy. After a marriage of less than 4 years, Falco left her for another woman. In 1950, Broder started a relationship with married man Joseph Kleinman, and 3 years later, she became pregnant with a child who she named Richard David Falco, and within a few days of his birth, though, she gave him away. Although her reasons for doing so are unknown, writers have surmised that Kleinman threatened to abandon her if she kept the baby and used his name. The infant boy was adopted by Pearl and Nathan Berkowitz of the Bronx, and the Jewish-American couple were hardware store retailers of modest means and childless and middle-aged. They reversed the order of the boy's first and middle names and gave him their own surname, raising young David Richard Berkowitz as their only child. Journalist John Vincent Sanders wrote that Berkowitz's childhood was, quote, somewhat troubled, end of quote. Although of above average intelligence, he lost interest in learning at an early age and became infatuated with petty larceny and starting fires. And as most of us in this community know, that is a big red flag: childhood arson, childhood fire starting. Neighborhoods and relatives would recall Berkowitz as difficult, spoiled, and a bully. His adoptive parents consulted at least one psychotherapist due to his misconduct, but his misbehavior never resulted in a legal intervention or a serious mention in his school records. He attended PS 123 and PS 77. Berkowitz's adoptive mother died of breast cancer when he was just 14 years old, and his home life became strained during later years, particularly because he disliked his adoptive father's second wife. So he didn't like his stepmommy. He lived with his father while attending Christopher Columbus High School, graduating in 71, and college in a 4.5-room apartment at 170 Dreiser Loop in Co-op City in the Bronx from 67 to 71. In 1971, at the age of 17, Berkowitz joined the United States Army and served in Fort Knox in the United States and with an infantry division in South Korea. After an honorable discharge in June of 1974, he located his birth mother, Betty. After just a few visits, she disclosed the details of his birth. The news greatly disturbed Berkowitz, and he was particularly distraught by the array of reluctant father figures, which, I do feel bad there. Forensic anthropologist Elliot Layton described Berkowitz's discovery of his adoption and birth details as the, quote, primary crisis, end of quote, of his life, a revelation that shattered his sense of identity. His communication with his birth mother later lapsed, but for a time he remained in communication with his half-sister Rosalind. He attended Bronx Community College for 1 year, enrolling in the spring of 75. In 1976, he went to work as a driver for the Co-op City Taxi Company. So creepy to think David Berkowitz picked some people up and drove them somewhere. I don't know, just weird. He subsequently had several non-professional jobs, and at the time of his arrest was working as a letter sorter, the most boring job in the world, for the United States Postal Service.
So yeah, it sounds like he had a rough start and then was given a second chance, and then that didn't work out. And then just when he found out he had been adopted and everything, it just blew his mind. And even though it mentions there how initially when he was a child he had above average intelligence, but he just didn't care. And like I said, would rather do petty crimes and start fires and things. And that starting fires, that's pretty disturbing. That's a lot of people that get into worse things later in life. That's how they start. Arson is widespread in the early years with anybody like that. But during the mid 70s, he started to commit violent crimes. Bungled his first attempt at murder using a knife and then switched to a handgun, began a lengthy spree throughout the New York boroughs of the Bronx, Queens, and Brooklyn. He sought young female victims. He was reportedly most attracted to white women with long, dark, wavy hair. All but one of the crime sites involved two victims. He infamously committed some of his attacks while the women sat with boyfriends in parked cars. He exhibited an enduring enjoyment of his activities, often returning to the scenes of the crimes. Now, he said we started out 1975. He stabbed a couple people on Christmas Eve when he was 22 years old. He used a hunting knife to stab two women in Co-op City, there where he'd lived in Bronx. One alleged victim, a Hispanic woman, was never identified by police, but the other was 15-year-old Michelle Foreman, sophomore at Truman High School, whom he attacked on a bridge near Dreiser Loop, again his old neighborhood, and whose serious injuries were enough to be caused her to be hospitalized for 7 days. Now, Berkowitz wasn't suspected of these crimes, and soon afterwards he relocated to an apartment in Yonkers, New York, just north of the New York City border, 20 to 25 minutes from Co-op City. So I'm curious if he moved after he did that just because he didn't ought to recognize since he was doing these stabbings in his own neighborhood. Now, the first shootings attributed to the son of Sam occurred in the Pelham Bay area of the Bronx in July of 1976. At about 1:10 a.m. on that date, Donna Lauria, an emergency medical technician, 18, and her boyfriend, Jody Valente, a nurse, 19, were sitting in Valente's double-parked Oldsmobile discussing their evening at Peach Trees, which was a discotheque in New Rochelle, New York. Lauria opened the door to leave and noticed a man quickly approaching the car. Startled and angered by the man's sudden appearance, she said, "Now, what is this?" The man then produced a pistol and showed her what it was. Carried a paper bag with a gun in it. He crouched, braced his one elbow on his knee, fired the weapon with both hands. And Lauria was struck by one bullet that killed her instantly. Valente was shot in the thigh, and a third bullet missed both women. The shooter turned and walked away quickly. Now, Valente did survive her injury and said that she did not recognize the killer. She described him as a white male in his 30s with a fair complexion, about 5'8", and weighing around 200 pounds. His hair was short, dark, and curly in a mod style. This description was repeated by Lauria's father, who claimed to have seen a similar man sitting in a yellow compact car parked nearby. Neighbors gave corroborating reports to police that an unfamiliar yellow compact car had been cruising the area for hours before the shooting. Years later, in 1993, journalist Maury Terry, that we were talking about earlier, interviewed Berkowitz at the Sullivan Correctional Facility, in which Berkowitz admitted that he himself indeed was the one who shot Lauria and Valente. The next pair of shootings, October 23rd, 1976, similar shooting occurred in a secluded residential area of Flushing, Queens, next to Bowen Park. Carl Denaro, a Citibank security guard, 20, and Rosemary Keenan, a Queens college student, 18, were sitting in Keenan's parked car when the windows suddenly shattered. "I felt like the car exploded," Denaro said later. Keenan quickly started this car and sped away for help. The panicked couple did not realize that someone had been shooting at them, even though Denaro was bleeding from a bullet wound to his head. Keenan had only suffered superficial injuries from the broken glass, but Denaro eventually needed a metal plate to replace a portion of his skull. Neither victim saw the attacker. Now, police determined that the bullets embedded in Keenan's car were a .44 caliber, but they were so deformed that they thought it unlikely that they could ever be linked to a particular weapon. Denaro had shoulder-length hair, and police speculated that the shooter had mistaken him for a woman. Keenan's father was a 20-year-old police veteran of New York City Police Department, causing an intense investigation. As with the Lauria Valente shootings, however, there seemed not to be any motive for the shooting, and police made little progress with the case. Many details of Denaro Keenan shooting were very similar to the Lauria Valente case, but police did not initially associate them, partly because the shootings occurred in different boroughs and were investigated by different local police precincts. You want to go ahead and pick up with the next one there?
Yeah, do you think he was smart enough? I mean, they said he was above average intelligence, but do you think he was smart enough on his own to realize, okay, I'm going to go to different precincts now? And
I don't think so, because when
I don't think so either.
when they thought he was above average, that's when he was like in the first and second grade and stuff.
Well, he lost interest, like they said, but also he might have been like book smart, but I didn't see, I'm sorry, where you left off because I was in the chat.
The next one would be the Demacia and Lamino shooting.
Okay. Demasi and Lamino shooting, November. High school student Donna Demasi, 16, and Joanne Lamino, a student at Martin Van Buren High School, 18, walked home from a movie soon after midnight on November 27, 1976. They were chatting on the porch of Lamino's home in Floral Park when a man dressed in military fatigues who seemed to be in his early 20s approached them and began to ask directions. In a high-pitched voice, he said, "Can you tell me how to get," but then quickly produced a revolver. He shot each of the victims once, and as they fell to the ground and injured, he fired several more times, striking the apartment building before running away. A neighbor heard the gunshots, rushed out of the apartment building, and saw a blonde man rush by gripping a pistol in his left hand. And I gotta say, and we'll get to it later, that was the most compelling evidence to me. It was the 5 completely different sketches done by witnesses of what the perpetrator looked like. Demasi had been shot in the neck, but the wound was not life-threatening. Lamino was hit in the back and hospitalized in serious condition. She was ultimately rendered paraplegic. Freund and Deal shooting, January 1977, at about 12:40 a.m. on January 30th, 1977. That's my sister Carol and April's birthday. Christine Freund, a secretary, 26, and her fiancé, John Deal, a bartender, 30, were sitting in Deal's car near the Forest Hills Long Island Railroad Station in Queens. I don't know. It said LIRR. I assume that's what it meant. Maybe not. Preparing to drive to a dance hall after having seen the movie Rocky. 3 gunshots penetrated the car. In a panic, Deal drove away for help. He suffered minor superficial injuries, but Freund was shot twice and died several hours later at the hospital. Neither victim had seen their attacker. Police made the first public acknowledgement that the Freund-Deal shooting was similar to earlier incidents and that the crimes might be associated. All the victims had been struck with .44 caliber bullets, and the shooting seemed to target young women with long dark hair. NYPD Sergeant Richard Conlon stated that police were, quote, leaning towards a connection in all these cases, end of quote. They were leaning towards one, really. Composite sketches were released of the black-haired Loria Valenti shooter and the blonde Lamino Demasi shooter, and Conlon noted that the police were looking for multiple suspects, not just one. Boscarician shooting, March 8th. At about 7:30 p.m. on March 8th, 1977, Columbia University student Virginia Boscarician, 19, was walking home from school when she was confronted by an armed man. She lived about a block from where Christine Freund had been shot. In a desperate move to defend herself, Boscarician lifted her textbooks between herself and her killer, but the makeshift shield was penetrated, the bullet striking her head and killing her. And I'll read the next one, and then you can take over right after that, Steve.
All right.
In a March 10th, 1977 press conference, NYPD officials and New York City Mayor Abraham Beame declared that the same .44 caliber Bulldog revolver had fired the shots that killed Loria and Boscarician. Official documents were later revealed, however, saying that police strongly suspected that the same .44 caliber Bulldog had been used in the shootings, but that the evidence was actually inconclusive. The crimes were discussed by the local media virtually every day. Circulation increased dramatically for the New York Post and Daily News, newspapers with graphic crime reporting and commentary. Foreign media featured many of the reports as well, including front-page articles of newspapers such as the Vatican's Lo Osservatore Romano, the Hebrew newspaper Ma'ariv, and the Soviet Izvestia. And I'm sorry, I do not speak any other language except sign, so I probably butchered those.
And then the crimes continued through April and July of 1977. The Asa and Suriani shooting, which took place in April. At about 3 a.m. on April 17th, 1977, Alexander Asa, a tow truck operator, 20, and Valentina Siriani, a Lehman College student and aspiring actress and model, 18, were sitting in a car belonging to Asaw's brother on the Hutchinson River Parkway Service Road in the Bronx, about a block from the girl's home and only a few blocks away from the scene of the Laria Valente shooting. A resident of a nearby building heard 4 shots and called the police. Siriani, who was sitting on the driver's seat, was shot once and Asaw twice, both in the head. Siriani died at the scene and Asaw died in the hospital several hours later without being able to describe his attacker, or attackers in this case. Police said that the weapon used for the crime was the same one which they had suspected in the earlier shootings. On September 23, 1993, in an interview with journalist Maury Terry, again at the Sullivan Correctional Facility, Berkowitz admitted that was him who committed this crime as well. Now, there was a series of letters that came about in all this. The first was the most famous one's called the Son of Sam letter, where the name was used for the first time. Police discovered a handwritten letter near the bodies of Asaw and Siriani, written mostly in block capitals with a few lowercase letters, and addressed to NYPD Captain Joseph Borelli. With this letter, Berkowitz revealed the name Son of Sam for the first time. The press had previously dubbed him the .44 caliber killer because of the weapon of choice. The letter was initially withheld from the public, but some of the contents were revealed to the press, and the name Son of Sam quickly replaced the old name. And I agree, that has a certain panache to it.
Yeah.
Not the .44 caliber killer. The letter expressed the killer's determination to continue his work and taunted police for their fruitless efforts to capture him. In full, with misspellings intact, the letter read, and I'm going to struggle through this. I am deeply hurt by your calling me a woman hater. I am not, but I am a monster. I am the Son of Sam. I am a little brat. When Father Sam gets drunk, he gets mean. He beats his family. Sometimes he ties me up to the back of the house. Other times he locks me in the garage. Sam loves to drink blood. Go out and kill, commands Father Sam. Behind our house, some rest, mostly young, raped and slaughtered. Their blood drained, just bones now. Papa Sam keeps me locked in the attic, too. I can't get out, but I look out the attic window and watch the world go by. I feel like an outsider. I'm on a different wavelength than everybody else. Programmed to kill. However, to stop me, you must kill me. Attention, all police. Shoot me first. Shoot to kill or else. Keep out of my way or you will die. Papa Sam is old now. He needs some blood to preserve his youth. He's had too many heart attacks. Too many heart attacks. Ugh, me hoot. It hurts, sonny boy. I miss my pretty princess most of all. She's resting in Our Lady's house, but I'll see her soon. I am the monster, Beelzebub, the chubby behemoth. I like to hunt, prowling the streets looking for fair game, tasty meat. The women of Queens are the prettiest of all. I must be the water they drink. I live for the hunt, my life. Blood for Papa. Mr. Borelli, sir, I don't want to kill anyone anymore. No, sir. No more, but I must honor thy father. I want to make love to the world. I love people. I don't belong on earth. Return me to Yahoos. To the people of Queens, I love you. And I want to wish you a happy Easter. May God bless you in this life and in the next. For now, I say goodbye and good night. Police, let me haunt you with these words. I'll be back. I'll be back. To be interrupted as bang, 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 bang. bang. Yours in murder, Mr. Monster.
I'm reading the next one. I can't wait.
Okay. Now, at that time, police suspected the letter writer might be Scottish English. The phrase, me hoot, it hurts, sonny boy, was taken as a Scottish accented version of my heart, it hurts, sonny boy, or it could have been Canadian. And the police also hypothesized that the shooter blamed a dark-haired nurse for his father's death due to the too many heart attacks phrase and the facts that Laria was a medical technician and Valente was studying to be a nurse. The killer's unusual attitude toward the police and the media received widespread scrutiny. Psychologists observed that many serial killers it's easy for me to say, gained gratification by eluding pursuers and observers. The feeling of control of media, law enforcement, and even entire populations provide a source of social power for them. That's why we have bullies on YouTube. After consulting with several psychiatrists,
get me started.
Police released a psychological profile of their suspect on May 26, 1977. He was described as neurotic and probably suffering from paranoid schizophrenia and believed himself to be a victim of demonic possession. Now, take it away with the other famous letter there.
Oh, I'm ready. Let's do this. Letter to Jimmy Breslin. On May 30th, 1977, Daily News columnist Jimmy Breslin received a handwritten letter from someone who claimed to be the .44 caliber shooter. The letter was postmarked early that same day in Englewood, New Jersey. Whoop. On the reverse of the envelope, neatly hand-printed in 4 precisely centered lines, were the words, "Blood and family, darkness and death, absolute depravity, .44. The letter in New York City, and from the ants that dwell in these cracks and feed in the dried blood of the dead that has settled into the cracks. JB, I'm just dropping you a line to let you know that I appreciate your interest in those recent and horrendous 44 killings. I also want to tell you that I read your column daily and I find it quite informative. Tell me, Jim, what will you have for July 29th? You can forget about me if you like, because I don't care for publicity. However, you must not forget Donna Loria, and you cannot let the people forget her either. She was a very, very sweet girl, but Sam's a thirsty lad, and he won't let me stop killing until he gets his fill of blood. Mr. Breslin, sir, don't think that because you haven't heard from me for a while that I went to sleep. No, rather, I am still here, like a spirit roaming the night, thirsty, hungry, seldom stopping to rest, anxious to please Sam. I love my work. Now the void has been filled. Perhaps we shall meet face to face someday, or perhaps I will be blown away by cops with smoking 38s. Whatever, if I shall be fortunate enough to meet you, I will tell you all about Sam if you like, and I will introduce you to him. His name is Sam the Terrible. Not knowing what the future holds, I shall say farewell, and I will see you at the next job. Or should I say you will see my handiwork at the next job. Remember Miss Loria. Thank you. In their blood and from the gutter, Sam's creation. 44. Here are some names to help you along. Forward them to the inspector for use by NCIC, the Duke of Death, the Wicked King Wicker, the 22 Disciples of Hell, John Wheaties, rapist and suffocator of young girls. P.S. Please inform all the detectives working the slaying to remain. P.S. JB, please inform all the detectives working the case. I wish them the best of luck. Keep 'em digging. Drive on. Think positive. Get off your butts. Knock on coffins, etc. Upon my capture, I promise to buy all the guys working the case a new pair of shoes if I can get up the money. Son of Sam. Underneath the Son of Sam was a logo or sketch that combined several symbols. The writer's question, what will you have for July 29th, was considered an ominous threat. July 29th would be the anniversary of the first .44 caliber shooting. Breslin notified police, who thought that the letter was probably from someone with knowledge of the shootings. The Breslin letter was sophisticated in its wording and presentation, especially when compared to the crudely written first letter, and police suspected that it might have been created in an art studio or similar professional location by someone with expertise in printing, calligraphy, or graphic design. The unusual writing caused the police to speculate that the killer was a comic letterer, and they asked staff members of DC Comics whether they recognized the lettering. These police were either grasping at straws or complete morons. The Wicked King Wicker reference caused police to arrange a private screening of The Wicker Man, a 1973 horror movie. It was much closer to home, that one. The New York Daily News published the letter a week later after agreeing with police to withhold portions of the text, and Breslin urged the killer to surrender himself. The dramatic article made that day's paper the highest-selling edition of the Daily News to date. More than 1.1 million copies were sold. Police received thousands of tips based on references in the publicized portions of the letter, all of which proved useless. All the shooting victims to date had long dark hair, and thousands of women in New York acquired short cuts or brightly colored dyes, and beauty supply stores had trouble meeting the demand for wigs.
Now, the comic book lettering thing and the Wicker Man reference and all that, turned out that John Wheaties' car that he talked about, actually lived on Wicker Street in Yonkers, and that's they found him dead under mysterious circumstances in South Dakota after Berkowitz had named him. Maury Terry discovered that. Let's continue on with the Lupo and Placido shooting, which happened in June. On June 26, 1977, there was another shooting. Sal Lupo, a mechanic's helper, 20, and Judy Placido, recent high school graduate, 17, had left the Elephants discotheque in Bayside, Queens, and were sitting in Lupo's parked car at about 3 a.m. when 3 gunshots blasted through the vehicle. Lupo was wounded in the right forearm, while Placido was shot in the right temple, shoulder, and back of the neck, but both victims survived their injuries. Lupo told police that the young couple had been discussing the Son of Sam case only moments before the shooting. There you go. Speak of the devil arrives, like the black-eyed kids. Neither Lupo nor Placido had seen their attacker, but 2 witnesses reported a tall, dark-haired man in a leisure suit fleeing from the area. One claimed to see him leaving the car and even supplied a partial license plate number. I hope if I'm ever shot, it's not by somebody in a leisure suit. And then finally, we have the Moskowitz and Velante shooting, which was in July. The first anniversary of the initial .44 caliber shootings was approaching, and police established a sizable dragnet that emphasized past hunting grounds in Queens and the Bronx. However, for them, the next and final .44 shootings occurred in Brooklyn. Early on July 31, 1977, Stacy Moskowitz, a secretary, and Robert Velante, a clothing store salesman, both 20, were in Velante's car, which was parked under a streetlight near City Park in the neighborhood of Bath Beach, on their first date. Well, that'd be a memorable first date, huh? They were kissing when a man approached within 90 centimeters or 3 feet of their car and on the passenger side and fired 4 rounds, striking both victims in the head before escaping into the park. A man named Tommy Ziano was a witness to the shooting. Velante lost his left eye. Moskowitz, the only blonde victim of Berkowitz, died from her injuries. That night, Detective John Palatico was awakened at home and told to report to the 10th Homicide Division at the 60th Precinct Station House in Coney Island. He was given 2 weeks to work on the Moskowitz and Velante case as a normal murder investigation. If it could not be solved in that time frame, it was to be given to the Son of Sam task force. Now then, we go into the suspicion and capture in August 1977. On August 9th, local resident Cecilia Davis was walking her dog at the scene of the Moskowitz and Velante shooting when she saw patrol officer Michael Cattaneo ticketing a car that was parked near a fire hydrant. Moments after the traffic police had left, a young man walked past her from the area of the car and seemed to study her with some interest. Davis felt concerned because he was wielding in his hand some kind of dark object. She ran to her home only to hear shots fired behind her in the street. Davis remained silent about the experience for 4 days until she finally contacted police, who closely checked every car that had been ticketed in the area that night. And among them, Berkowitz' 1970 four-door yellow Ford Galaxy was one of the ones that they had to investigate. On August 9th, 77, New York PD Detective James Justice telephoned Yonkers police to ask them to schedule an interview with Berkowitz. The Yonkers police dispatcher who took Justice's call was Wheat Carr, the daughter of Sam Carr, and sister of Berkowitz's alleged cult confederates John and Michael Carr. That's John Wheaty's car. Justice also asked the Yonkers police for some help tracking down Berkowitz. According to Mike Novotny, the sergeant at the Yonkers Police Department, the Yonkers police had their own suspicions about Berkowitz in connection with other strange crimes in Yonkers, crimes they say referred to in one of the Son of Sam letters. Yonkers investigators even told the New York City detective that Berkowitz might be the Son of Sam.
Oh, wow. I'm going to do the arrest?
Yep.
Arrest, August 10th. The next day, August 10th, 1977, police investigated Berkowitz's car that was parked on the street outside his apartment building at 35 Pine Street in Yonkers. They saw a gun in the back seat, searched the car, and found a duffel bag filled with ammunition, maps of the crime scenes, and a threatening letter addressed to Inspector Timothy Dowd of the Omega Task Force. Can I just say they illegally searched his vehicle? They did not have a warrant.
Didn't have a warrant.
And who knows where this would have went had Berkowitz decided to plead not guilty, because all of that evidence would have had to have been thrown out. Police decided to wait for Berkowitz to leave the apartment after illegally searching his car, rather than risk a violent encounter in the building's narrow hallway. They also waited to obtain a search warrant for the apartment, worried that their search might be challenged in court. The initial search of the vehicle was based on the handgun that was visible in the back seat, although possession of such a gun was legal in New York State and required no special permit. The warrant still had not arrived when Berkowitz exited the apartment building at about 10 o'clock p.m. and entered his car. Detective John Falotico approached the driver's side car the driver's side of the car. Falotico pointed his gun close to Berkowitz's temple, while Detective Sergeant William Gardella pointed his gun from the passenger's side. A paper bag containing a .44 caliber Bulldog revolver of the type that was identified in ballistics tests was found next to Berkowitz in the car. Berkowitz then stated flatly, "Well, you got me." As described in Son of Sam, the 1981 movie by Lawrence D. Klausner, Detective Falotico remembered the big, inexplicable smile on the man's face. "Now that I've got you," Detective Falotico said to the suspect, "who have I got?" "You know," the man said, in what detective remembered was a soft, almost sweet voice. "No, I don't. You tell me." The man turned his head and said, "I'm Sam." "You're Sam? Sam who?" "Sam. David Berkowitz." An alternate version claimed that Berkowitz's first words were reported to be, "Well, you got me. How come it took you such a long time?" But Detective John Falotico was officially credited by the NYPD as the arresting officer of the Son of Sam. Police searched apartment 7E and found it in disarray with satanic graffiti on the walls. They also found diaries that he had kept since he was 21 years old, 3 stenographers' notebooks nearly all full, wherein Berkowitz meticulously noted hundreds of arsons that he claimed to have set throughout New York City. Some sources speculate that this number might be over 1,400. Soon after Berkowitz's arrest, the address of the building was changed from 35 Pine Street to 42 Pine Street in an attempt to end its notoriety. After the arrest, Berkowitz was briefly held in a Yonkers police station before being transported directly to the 60th Precinct in Coney Island, where the detectives' task force was located. At about 1 a.m., Mayor Abraham Beam arrived to see the suspect personally, and after a brief and wordless encounter, he announced to the media, "The people of the city of New York can rest easy because of the fact that the police have captured a man whom they believe to be the Son of Sam. Do we need a break?"
It's almost time to...
It just hit me. Well, I figured we
it.
could end at 9:30. I don't know if we're going to have time to do the blood moon on my channel because I actually can't stay until 10:30.
Okay, well, let's take a break then, and we'll come back and finish up with...
we could always finish up next week and do a 2-parter.
We could do that, too.
And have more information on the Sons and
there's
Maury Perry's
really
book.
A lot more to go through.
Yeah, why don't we do that? We'll do
just
part 2 next week.
Wrap it up for tonight then, and you can see us back here next week for part 2. And
I'm going to have about, whenever we end here, we're going to go direct to my channel, guys, and do just a quick live stream to say what's up and maybe talk about the blood moon. I wanted to talk about the blood moon tonight and the effects on certain astrological signs. So however you guys want to do this, if you want to do a quick break and then come back and we'll end, or if you just want to end Dezombified, it's up to you. But I just looked at the clock and realized I can't do 10:30 tonight. So...
from test my stream out tonight on Ghost Stories at Midnight and make sure everything works, because I have not streamed from this laptop ever.
And what we'll do is we'll do Campfire Tales from 7 to 8, or Campfire Stories. I don't know why I always call it Campfire Tales. From 7 to 8, and then we'll do from 8 to 10 on my channel, or like 8:30.
And we're back. 10. I don't know if you heard all that or not, but we're going to postpone the Blood Moon broadcast. I couldn't get the word out there until Friday. So that's going to be it for us tonight. Go ahead and subscribe to Gemma Jade.
I was just going to say, well, if you guys haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please go do so. Steve just put a link. I'm wondering where Jarvis and Maraid are tonight. I'm actually a little worried. But yeah, so because I can't do until 10:30 and I don't want to do just a half-hour stream, what we're going to do on Friday when we do Campfire Stories on Missing Persons and Mysteries, we'll do the regular Campfire Stories from 7 to 8, and then we'll take like a 15-minute break, and then from 8:15 to 10 o'clock, we'll do like a Mercury retrograde post blood moon kind of thing on my channel, because I need to get my view hours up, and the best way to do that is live streams. So join us next week for part 2 of the Sons of Sam, because there is so much more. I really don't want to, you know, Steve, put a link to your YouTube channel on here. I really don't want to like rush through it. There's so much, and Maury Terry's book was so amazing, and the documentary was so amazing. I don't want to cut it short. I want to give you guys all the information, because you're going to be absolutely stunned. So everybody, I'm going to do my little goodbye now. I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for all the support. You guys always, I'm in a better place for knowing you guys, and I'm in a much better mood for having spent this time with you. So anyone who just came in, sorry, but you missed it, but you can always go back and listen to it. We usually get our views up like that too. So guys, wherever you are, have your best day, have your best night. Always be kind to each other. You never know what somebody else is going through. So just be kind, and then always keep your side of the street clean. Be decent human beings to one another. It all comes back to you 3, 4, 5, 10-fold. Go in grace always. And, you know, again, have your best day, have your best night, and good night. Mwah! Mwah!
And thank you, Gemma, for, as always, for being with us here. That's the link to Missing Persons and Mysteries there in the chat. I just copied and pasted instead of typing it out. You can also find me on 13 Past Midnight. And 1 second, I'll put a link to that in here too. Okay. And that's where I do the ghost stories at midnight, among other things. Missing Persons and Mysteries, that's exactly what it sounds like. Missing Persons, of course, and then Mysteries, we're very liberal with that side of it. Anything that's mystery, paranormal, strange, unusual, abnormal, put it on there. Yeah, just I'm working on it there, Mustang. That's about 6 months worth, so it'll get there, or I'll cut it off, one or the other. All right, well, we're gonna go ahead and cut out of here. On behalf of Jim and myself, thank you for joining us. Yeah, the stream won't be tonight, Dezombified. We're going to wait and do it Friday night, just because of extenuating circumstances, and we ran late, and I haven't set up the. I've got the streaming software set up on here, but I haven't tested it yet, so I'm going to do that tonight at 13 past midnight. All right, folks. Again, thanks for being here. Be good to yourselves and each other. I'm Steve Stockton. On behalf of Jim and myself, we will see you next time. Good night, everybody. Mwah. Love you all.
Mwah. She just came in. April, I just messaged you.
All right, April. Go ahead and watch the replay if you want. Sorry you missed it.
You tomorrow. Everyone else, good night again. Dezombified, thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thanks, guys. We appreciate it.
Yeah, and thanks. My name's finally on it. I'm like, yay, I earned my name. So we didn't realize it was going to be a part 2. So sorry about that, but I think it'll keep more people coming back. There's just so much, you guys. I don't know if you guys know the kind of meat of the Maury Terry investigation. It's crazy. The documentary on Netflix was like a 4-parter. It blew my mind. I believed all of it. I drank the Kool-Aid hook, line, and sinker. So I'm gonna go downstairs and get the baby. I think he's probably sleeping because I don't hear like any craziness going on.
You don't hear any destruction going on down there.
Yeah, pretty much. I heard him banging on the ceiling with something, and then I haven't heard anything since. So, Dezombified, the best YouTube channel ever. I concur. You guys are so awesome. I can't wait for you to just blow up because it's going to happen.
Yeah, it's going
Steve,
to happen sooner or later.
I'll message you in. I'll message you in a little bit. I thought that was Steve. I was going to yell at him.
I thought it was Jim. I was going to say, stop that. Oh,
Thank you.
Let's see.